Hello, this is a demo of how to prepare your panel file for submission to CurrentCare. We recommend that you have 2 monitors for this process, but for this demo we will show it using the Windows side-by-side view. Here is an example of a sample report on the left from your electronic health record. There's no actual PHI on anything shared here, it's all test demo patients. On the right side is the Create a Panel File template. We will walk through the details of both of these throughout this training, and then we will show you how to prepare your file so that it can be copied into the Create a Panel File template. We're going to start with maximizing the Create a Panel File. This is set up so that you have color coding in an Excel format to begin with. The color coding will be there. Once you save it as a CSV format, the color coding and other formatting will go away. But for now, it's good to leave it in this Excel format so that you have that to look at. Eventually, the plan will be to delete all of these other rows by highlighting them, right-clicking, and deleting them. For now, we'll leave them just to talk about that. The headings are, the orange items are for Delta panels. Most organizations will not be doing this, but if you choose to do that and have arranged with the CurrentCare support team to submit just updates, maybe new patients or deleted patients only, and not a full panel, then you can use that. But for everyone else, please just ignore this and leave this blank. Leave the column there, but leave the items blank. The blue values are required. There are 9 of these. We will go over those in more detail in a little bit. Please make sure they are never blank and always completed as accurately as possible. The gray items are optional. Many of these items will be able to be displayed within the CurrentCare tools. If you submit them here, then your staff will be able to see them, or in some scenarios for the yellow columns, other organizations may also be able to see them for the purposes of care coordination. So the PCP, the care program, or the care manager are the fields that are currently active today. The green items, there are only 2. It's the second address field and social security number. Those are optional. Please only provide those if those are available, or if in the social security number if you are comfortable sharing that. It's only used for matching purposes, and it is never displayed to end users. So that is optional. You do not need to submit that, but please again include the column, but do not include any data in that field if that's your intention to leave that blank. There are some columns all the way over here to the right that are purple. Those are care alerts is a future potential project, so we just recommend that you don't submit anything in those columns for now, and we'll be teaching you about those later on if we do implement the care alerts program. I'm going to show you, we have some notes here about CurrentCare version April 14th. So there were 3 column headers changed. This is a very simple change. It's just that the header name changed. So we will not be probably using any of these fields, but I just wanted you to note that the headings did change. You may receive an error that you're using the old column. It's not an error that will stop you, but it will just notify you that this new column is, instead of ENS start date, it's send start date, instead of the other 2. Follow-up date over here, columns AO and AP, they just put underscores between instead of spaces between the words. Those are the only changes to the template. Otherwise, I'm going to scroll to the left. This heading row needs to remain exactly the way that it is. Please don't change the spelling on anything, don't remove anything, don't add anything. When you go forward and delete all the other rows, you will leave that heading row exactly the way that it is. Okay, I also just want to mention before we move back to the other file that we do have some helpful tabs here. When you're seeing this in the Excel version, when you save it as CSV, this will go away. But in Excel, the field descriptions is very helpful. So we go through each heading here. For instance, that first group row explains that this will only display to the organizations submitting the panel. This won't be shown to other organizations. It is optional. The purpose is to designate a program or a group to a subset of the patient population within your organization. So it could be Group A or Group B, diabetes. For this example, I think I even put a site name, a city name in there. I mean, you really can use this as you would like to. And there are multiple other customizable fields in here where you can submit your own information that will be displayed to your care team later. Some other examples are for names. We do describe things like, for all names field, it's best to put a space between multiple first names, but don't replace them with apostrophes. So Mary Jane, if there is a dash there, if there is a space there, don't replace that with a dash. Just use it as it was provided. Another example is write out any letters. So if someone has just J as a first name, if you're able to, please write out whatever that first name is of Justin. That will improve matching as well. And then the last thing that I want to point out is that for the address fields, we can accept no fixed address or homeless. We don't recommend using the practice address, and there are some other best practices as well on this tab called Best Practices around how to do that. So best practices for unhoused populations, and then also just in general how to make sure you maximize the amount of patients that are matching. And sure all column headers are included and things like that. Make sure you use the right file name, which we'll go through in a minute. Okay, so now we're going to switch over to the sample EHR file. You might want to save a version of this, so whatever report you received from your electronic health record, you might want to save a version with this date or something like that, so that if you do make changes, you also have your original version. I'm going to unhide a column that I already added in here. What we suggest doing is marking the required columns with the required while you're working through this process of cleaning up this data file. That's just so that you know that those columns cannot be blank. If you submit a file that has even one blank in this, then your file is going to fail. So it's really important that you make sure to check for blanks, and I'm going to show you some tips about how to do that in a couple minutes. So the first thing I wanted to point out is those required, and then the second thing is that I've marked in red here some things that we'll go through in a minute about how to check, but that would fail. So some examples are a duplicate MRN number. This is one of the biggest things that will cause issues, especially with patient matching and files failing. So here you'll see that these two have the same MRN number, and we'll show you how to check for that before you submit your file. Another example is there's a dash here inside of this MRN number. There are no symbols allowed in this tool for the MRN number. So you can put letters and numbers, but no punctuation at all. Some other things are we have a birth date with the 1900. There is a typo there, so that's something we can look for. We have a blank birth date that will show up in our blank file highlighting process that we use in a few minutes. No fixed address is fine. I marked that in green, but this one in red is that ABC practice address will not be accepted. So you will want to remove your practice address from the address of anyone and instead list homeless or no fixed address. You can include the city, state, and zip. That's helpful for matching purposes, but don't include the practice name there. We also don't accept words inside of the address to field, such as lives with son. The number or apartment and things like that are acceptable, but not wording. Some other small examples: cell phone number can't have dashes in it or all zeros. It should either be blank or have a valid cell phone number. And then for NPI number, it needs to be 10 digits. So we have an example here that is just 3. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is work on the birth date field. So basically for all of these fields, you'll need to go through and make sure they're in the correct format. So for instance, the gender needs to be in either M, F, O, or U, or other or unknown, male or female. So as long as those are fine, you don't have to go through this process for each one, but I do recommend that you go through each of the required fields and try to find things that you can fix ahead of time. So a way to do that is to start at the beginning of your data, and then of course you'll have a lot more here than just a few patients or clients. So first you can do Control, Shift, and End, and that will bring you down to the end of your data. Or if you have some blanks, it might you might have to click it a few times to kind of get to the end of that data. But now we're highlighting all of that specific pieces of information. Or another alternative is, for this, you can actually just highlight the whole column, and then you can right click and go to Format Cells, and we can go to Date and change that to a format that's accepted. So the month, day, and year comes up as default, and then you can say OK there. So now our date is formatted in a way that is acceptable. We'll still deal with the 1900 in a little bit, but at least your formatting is correct. So if you first look through and make sure, is the formatting correct for all of these, then you can move on to looking for other issues with your data. One thing you can do is highlight all of your data by doing Control, Shift, End, and that will highlight all of the many rows and information that you have. Or you can do from the top cell, Control, Shift, down arrow. Here we're going to look for duplicate MRN values. This is really important to make sure that you don't have any duplicates. So you go to Home, Conditional Formatting, Highlight Cells Rules, Duplicate Values. And since I've been using red, I'm going to choose a different color. It really doesn't matter what you do here, but I'll do yellow so that it will show me that duplicate values will show in yellow. So if you have a lot of them, you'll want to use something like maybe a filter. You can turn on filters in your file by going to Data, Filter. And now you can filter by color and just see the ones that have an MRN conflict. And then you want to resolve those before you move forward with this file. So in our example, we're going to change that to the correct number here. We were able to resolve that. Okay, now we're going to look for any blank data in required fields. So we can do that by starting at the beginning of our data, doing Control, Shift, End to highlight everything in our whole report. And then again, we're going back up to Home, Conditional Formatting, Highlight Cells Rules, More Rules. And this is format only cells that contain, and we want to change blanks. So select a rule type says format only cells that contain, and then you choose blanks, and then we want to format it with something. We'll do some sort of a fill, maybe something orange here, something really bright that will stand out for us. Okay, so now what we want to do is go through the required columns and make sure that you do not have any orange values in those columns. It's okay if you have them in other columns that are not required. So middle name is fine if you don't have a middle name or suffix in there. So we don't have any under MRN or first name or last name or gender, but we do have one for date of birth. So we want to make sure to complete any information, go back into the record and find whatever that information is. Just add that in there. And then it's okay that the address is blank, the PCP, and PI. So that's a quick way to be able to display which ones are blank. And you can also filter by that color after you do that. So if you have a big long report and you don't want to scroll through, use your filters and just show you the ones that are orange, which means they're blank for that one column. So you can go column by column, make sure you fill in all the blanks of just the required ones. Okay. So now we're going to hide or clear our filters. So we're going to go back to Conditional Formatting and Clear Rules from either the selected cells or just the entire sheet. So at least we're back to a cleaner view now that we've made sure that our required cells don't have any blanks and that the formatting of each column is correct. Now we're going to do a quality check. So I did turn on filters. Now I'm going to do click the drop down and see if anything stands out as incorrect. I can also search for things for each column. So for this MRN one, I know I can't have any punctuation, so I can search by typing in a dash there, and that will show me the, oh, that's right, I forgot to focus on that one and clean that up. So I'm going to just remove that dash from there and then clear my filter. And you can go through for just the required columns just to make sure that those have the correct information in there. So gender, for instance, it makes it a nice clean view that you only have a few options. Even if you have, hundreds or thousands of patients here, you'll be able to quickly see what your values are and if there are any that do not meet the formatting requirements. And then for date of birth, I find this helpful because it will show you any years that are off, that are future. If you certainly don't want to see something in the future, and then you don't want to see anything too far back either. So you can unselect all and just show the ones that might be giving you an issue. Oh, that's right. So we just typed this one wrong and it was actually 1990. Now I'm going to clear that filter. Okay. For the address field, I'm going to copy our no fixed address and change that. And then for our address 2, I'm going to remove the lives with son. For cell phone, I'm going to remove the dashes and PI the ones. Now we're going to go back to the view of seeing these two side by side so we can copy the information. So if you have Windows 11, I definitely recommend using that. It's a nice quick way to get the two files next to each other. If not, you can use 2 monitors and that would be better. Okay. So now what we're going to do is prepare our create a panel file. So you want to highlight all the rows that have extra information that won't be needed anymore, and then delete those. Don't change anything, don't change the colors or anything. You don't have to do that in the heading, but do leave that first row. And now you can do a file save as, or F12 if you have that as an option on your keyboard. That also works. So what we're going to do, so instead of the naming convention that's here right now, we need to use, I'm going to copy in the file name so I can show you what it looks like. So we're doing a file save as, we rename it. It will say your panel's subscriber code here, which CurrentCare support team will provide you. Then you'll have -1, -Z. Z is for anyone who's not using a Delta file, so you're overwriting your whole file, which is what almost everyone will be using. And then you have the current date. So -month, -day, -full 4-year example. And then we're going to change it to CSV. So instead of Excel workbook, we're going to change it to CSV, delimited. Make sure I know what folder I'm putting it in, and then I'm going to save it. So it does give you an error because there's other information that is not separated value file formatting. You can just say okay. It does not support all of our multiple sheets that we have or all this formatting. And if you say okay, it doesn't look like it changes it. Some features might be lost. You can say don't show again, or that's fine if you get any errors like that. So it is saved as a CSV. But what I'm going to do is show you how if I now close it, even though it still has all those colors there and those extra tabs in my view, when I open it back up again as a CSV file, it's now in a separated value format. So it is much cleaner to work in this version. Oops, sorry. I'm going to separate those and put them side by side. So now you have your CSV file that's named correctly. It's in the CSV format, so it doesn't have extra tabs, it doesn't have any color coding, but it has the proper heading names. Now what we're going to do is copy the information over column by column. So again, you really want to focus on your required columns, and then of course you can add in any other information that you're looking to supply in your panel, so that can be shown. One other thing I like to do is highlight this whole sheet and just double click on this little bar that shows up between the first 2 columns, and that will make the columns the correct width so that we can see what information we have there. Other than the width, you don't want to change anything about those. So first we'll start with group. So I think what I'm going to choose to do is put my my site name, what we call site at my practice here. So I'm going to copy that. Oh, let me just show you. So I highlighted it. You can do Control-Shift-N to get to the, sorry. You can do Control-Shift-Down to highlight all of your data and all of your rows. Then you can right-click and copy, or you can Control-C and copy. And then I'm going to paste that into my new file. I do recommend that you just right-click and go to Paste Special Values, or just Paste Values, and that will show only the values. Again, you can open your columns up to meet this. You don't have to put your site names here. You can put that under location. There are other things you can do, but we're just using this as an example. Okay, the next one is member status. I would like to go column by column here and make sure they're all completed. So member status is something I don't need to complete because I am only doing a file that is overwrite, which most of you will do, so you can just skip that one. Patient ID is my MRN number, so this is important. So now I cleaned up my MRNs. Now I can do the same thing. Control-Shift-Down arrow, right-click and copy, and then come over here, right-click, paste values. It's okay that they don't line up. The formatting here doesn't matter as long as the data is correct in there. Okay, so now we're going to see that my next few columns actually align. So I have first, middle, last, suffix. All of those 4 are going to be ones that I can copy together. Just be a little careful about this, but those 4, right-click, paste, values. So we're not pasting any of the formatting in there or any kind of issues like that. We'll make sure that works. Okay, so now I'm just going to scroll a little to the right on my left file and the right file. Yes, address. Address 1, address 2, city and state, and zip. Address 1, 2, city, state, zip. So all those I can highlight, copy, right click, paste value. Just going to open up the zip code and show you it's okay that zip codes have do not include their leading zeros. The system can accept those, can also accept 9-digit or 5-digit formats or with dashes in it. Okay, so now we're going to go to birth date and gender. We'll do birth date first. This one, we might have to right click and do values and number formatting so that it will show the actual birth date. All right, gender, so we're going to do Control-Shift-End, copy all of our gender, these special values. We only have a cell phone. Control-Shift-Down, sorry. Cell phone. So we'll do care manager name. Values. And insurance. In the end, we do recommend that you spot check 5 rows. So pick one and then go back to your original file and filter on just that one row and make sure that the information is exactly the same. So if you spot check about 5 of them, you will make sure that you got your information in the correct order. So one thing that I did on purpose that I wanted to show you is when you're doing your spot checking, you will realize that instead of putting the gender under gender, I put it under social security number. So that is a way that spot checking those 5 fields will help make sure that you include the information in the correct columns. We can save our file and we are ready for uploading it into the CurrentCare system, whether you use the panel processor or the SFTP MFT process. This same panel file will be used for both.